Welcome to Whisky.com, where fine spirits meet. My name is Luening, Horst Luening, and this is my son Ben. And today we have the pleasure to have our second live event. And the last time we were quite happy with everything happening. I think the resolution was a little bit low with a 720, but this time we tried to stream with full HD in 24 NTSC P.
Yeah, and I think we made it. We have a few frame drops, but I think we have a pretty good stream right now. And today is a bit different. Last time it was just question and answers, just live chat and us. And today we're gonna have 4 whiskies on the cask, and you sent out a newsletter about this.
We sent out messages about this, yes. And well, I hope you were able to get some samples of the 4 whiskies we will have today here for tasting. And we thought that we would held something like a masterclass, which is typically held in fairs, whiskey fairs. And so we choose just to take 4 because of time. We set us a limit of about an hour, a little bit more, of course. And therefore we only have 4. And it's always the question in which sequence we will have this whiskey. And there are 2 possibilities how to sequence whiskies, or 3 in particular. The first would be by ABV, by alcoholic content. The weakest first and the most alcoholic last. The thought behind is that you add up and paralyze more and more of your tasting buds, and so it's going up.
No, I think we're back on.
Did you know
tell the last 30 seconds or a minute.
Okay, so the third sequence which is possible would be to give the freight in your mouth, the intensity of the whiskey in sequence. And with this sequence I decided to go. So we have the least smoky first, the Bunnahabhain 12 years old, but we will see it's quite intense. Then the Ardbeg, it has the most intense smokiness of all those 4 whiskies, but it's quite smooth and sweet in the taste, and this will not stay for such a long time in your mouth. And then the Bowmore.
I have to stop you there. When we don't have the connection, I have to stop for 1 second to change down so we're not that laggy.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Waiting, still says waiting. Now we're online again, I think.
Yep.
So we changed the frame rate down to 20 again. This was a little bit too much for our line. So again, for the sequence in which we taste the whiskies, first the one with the least smokiness, the Bunnahabhain 12, then the Ardbeg. It's the most smoky whiskey in this sequence, but it's quite sweet and smooth in the taste, so the aftertaste would be quite short or not that long. And then the Bowmore, which has a hefty sherry cask freight. Are we still online?
We are still online.
Okay, but I see no picture.
Yeah, it's coming back. This is the picture you're taking.
Okay. So we have the Bowmore with a sherry cask, which will give quite a hefty aftertaste, and the Kilchoman, which has a lot of smokiness and a sherry cask in the mixture, and that will bring, well, the most intense residue in your mouth. So this is the sequence I preferred for this whiskey. Well, where do we start? Yes, with this masterclass we also have a little presentation about the whiskey distilleries we would like to present to you. And I think Ben will start quite soon.
I hope we're still online.
Yeah, it's red.
It's red, and we're dropping a lot of frames. It's a bit hard, but I think we're on live.
What do you think about reducing?
Just darkness. Why is it just darkness?
You have to
Wait
to reduce the transfer rate from the 6,000 down to.
Okay.
So we're sorry about that. It's always new equipment, and we're still in the process learning it.
Yeah.
And better.
Hopefully, but I still get darkness in the screen. I don't know why. But it okay. We're back online, I think.
Not yet.
Hopefully we will get back online here as well. Oh my god. Why is nothing showing?
Just darkness.
Sorry about that.
It's orange, red. 20 frames per second. CPU is low.
We're dropping 50% of the frames, but we should get at least a picture. Did my code change it for some reason? No, my code didn't change. So I really don't get this. I think I'll restart OBS. So we're back in a few minutes. Grün. Verworfene Frames 0. Also wir müssten eigentlich.
Ja, rot ist aber erst, wenn er läuft, oder?
Oh, ich glaube, jetzt sind wir wieder online.
Okay.
Okay. Back to English. Sorry.
Can we move the picture to the big screen so that I control myself? Very good. Thank you.
Should work now. Yeah.
Okay.
So where were we?
We finally made 3 attempts to discuss the sequence, and now we're through with the sequence, and we just wanted to start with the presentation. So we have a few slides from our wizards of the distilleries just in front of tasting the whiskies, and I hope you had the chance to get your fingers on samples. There were miniatures, or there are miniatures out in the market, and the big bottles should be broadly available as well. I'm not quite sure if the Kilchoman is available worldwide. No idea. It's quite a small and quite young distillery on Islay. So perhaps you start with the introduction.
So yes, it was an idea for the German channel. On the German channel, we actually sold the kit, the small kit or the big kit. And I made a video this week where I said, okay, there's going to be a live stream. Maybe you can try to get your hands on one of these 4 bottles or all of the 4 bottles and try them with us. Because this time we're not going to take questions, but we're going to take your take or your flavors, your nosing on these bottles. So I can already start the presentation?
Yeah, just go ahead.
Okay. So here we see a map of Islay, and Islay is a small island in the Inner Hebrides at the coast of Scotland. So here we see the Scottish mainland, and this is part of Great Britain. And here we have one of the other British islands. This is called the Isle of Islay, and right next to the Isle of Islay we have the Isle of Jura, which houses a distillery, same name, so the Isle of Jura here. And today we're gonna look at the Bunnahabhain distillery up here north. Then we have the Ardbeg down here in the south. And in the middle we have the Bowmore distillery, and Kilchoman is the only distillery that's not near the sea, and that is on the very west coast.
Yeah, just let me interrupt you. The Isle of Islay is not part of Great Britain.
Yeah, it's a British island. It's part of the British Islands.
Yeah, and it's part of the United Kingdom. Mm-hmm. So in former times, the Lord of the Isles were reign in Islay, and so the prohibition of the production of single malt whiskey or malt whiskey in the Highlands, which was into effect until 1823, 1824, was not active on Islay, so that there are distilleries which are older, like the Bowmore, which is from 1779.
So yeah, we're gonna start with Bunnahabhain, and this is the Bunnahabhain distillery. And the Bunnahabhain distillery was established in 1881 and is the most northern distillery in the on the Isle of Islay. And here comes the first problem with the Bunnahabhain, with the name. Bunnahabhain is spelled as such. You can see here, it's the Bunnahabhain distillery. And some person in the Royal British Ordnance Survey did a mistake, and I think it's gone like something like this. How do you spell Bunnahabhain? Double N, and then you look at it, yeah, double N. And the other guy who wrote it down just added an N in the end, and then you had 4 N's in Bunnahabhain. And long time, the British maps all said Bunnahabhain with 2 N's in the end. But the people on Islay just said, we don't care, we still spell it with 1 N. And the people from the distillery spell it with 1 N. The people in the town spell it with 1 N. I think there is a road sign with 2 N's on the island. And old British maps all have 2 N's. Google Maps changed it now. They have 1 N, except for the bay. The bay is still spelled with 2 N's for some reason. So yeah, that's the story behind the Bunnahabhain name. And it's a nice distillery. I can't say it's little. It's quite big. It has a 2.5 million liters per year output. And that's where we come to the hard piece. This is where the spirit for the whiskey is produced. We have 4 pot stills, and you can see you have here, you have a wash still, and this here is another wash still. You can see this by looking at the, what do you call it, flanges? I think, yeah, flanges. These are red, and red is always for wash still. I think in the early days that was actually British law, that you have to have the wash still with the red, and the blue is the spirit still. Also, you can see the wash still has the watch glass, because you don't want to overboil your wash still, because it has the beer in it, that has
the residue of
the wash in it, and has a little bits in it. And if you get bits into your condenser, it might block it, and then you get overpressure, and you might have a exploding pot still in front of you. So always look through the watch glass and not have it overboiling. They are quite big. You can see here the wash still is 35,366 liters. Sorry for you Americans, I don't know what that is in gallons.
10,000, close to.
10,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, about 10,000. And then we have the low wines, the spirit still, which is approximately half, maybe a bit smaller than a half. And they are very, very pear-shaped.
So that all the intents, all the character of the alcohol vapors is moving over to the condensers.
So you get a bit of a more spicy spirit from that point of view. Okay, you don't have, I think half of the condensers are not inside the building. And this here is one of the newer warehouses. And if you do a distillery tour, if you ever happen to go to Islay and you do a distillery tour, just around that corner is a little stool circle, a little bank and a table. And in the end of the tour, you sit in that circle and you have a few drams of whiskey inside the warehouse. So it's really nice to be in the warehouse and just have that warehouse smell and try the Bunnahabhain. And another thing what you see here is it's not a usual warehouse.
Classic, not a dunnage warehouse.
It's not a dunnage warehouse, but you can see these posts here, and it's actually reinforced at the top with new wood, and that's because this room used to be a malting floor, and used to spread out the malt for germination, and now they reinforced all the ceilings and the floors, so they can now store these heavy casks in there. And you see the casks here are very, very big casks. They're not the usual ABS, American Standard barrels, but they are European sherry casks. So they're about 500 liters, and they used to store sherry in there. So now we're looking at a bit of a sherry character in the whiskey that is maturing inside this warehouse here. So
Yeah, this is the last picture.
this is
of
the last
Bunnahabhain.
picture for
Yeah.
Bunnahabhain.
Bunnahabhain has.
Oh wait,
Yeah,
Oop, there you go.
Bunnahabhain has a sailor here in front with his steering wheel and the hand at his cap. So Bunnahabhain is the northernmost distillery on Islay, and there's the sound where the ship came in to Porter's Cake. And the fishermen, and the first that they saw was the Bunnahabhain distillery, and so they say this is the fisherman's whiskey. And there is a famous tune out there called Westering Home, and in former times it was printed on back of the whiskey. So it was founded 1881, and it was, well, the distillery has some changes in proprietors, and today I think they are owned by South Africans, by Distel Corporation, and formerly they were owned by a company called CL Financial with a subsidiary CL Ward brand, which home is in Trinidad Tobago. So it has quite an odyssey. And yeah, here we have Bunnahabhain. It's 46% ABV, quite hefty, and it's uncolored, and it's 46.3 ABV.
bit more hefty.
And with these ABV, you can distinguish the unchill filtered from the filtered former older bottles. And there are two other distilleries in this range, the Deanston and the Tobermory, which are owned by the same corporation, and they all as well have 46.3 ABV, showing that they are now uncolored and unchill filtered.
So for all of you who have the Bunnahabhain 12 in your glass, just write down in the chat what you smell, and then we can share the experience of having the whiskey together.
So what I first find is there is, for an Islay whiskey, quite few smoke aromas. So there is immediately the backlying caramel and freshness, a little lightness. There is a little smoke in it, yes, but not too hefty. But it's not one of those extremely stinky Islay whiskies. Yeah.
I have a bit fruity in there as well.
Yeah.
But it's sweeter with and it has a bit of a nutty aroma.
This, I think, there is this this spiciness showing through, which will come when we taste it. So we just, I think we start with the first sip. Quite hefty.
I do feel the kick of 46% ABV. Oh yeah, we have the first John McGowan. Heavy sherry, fruitcake and leather.
There is this very dark and aromatic, aromatic.
I have a slight bitterness in the end, which I do associate with leather as well. Yeah.
So the impact on the tongue is much more intense than the smell, and the aftertaste still carries on. There's some prickling on my tongue.
Yeah, I do have a lot of aftertaste. It still stays in my mouth though.
So there are some official tasting notes I printed out for myself, and there you really find those nuts, which I do not find in the moment.
I didn't have it in the taste yet. I only had it a bit in the nose.
And there is some maltiness and, well, some sherry in it, definitely showing up.
Yeah, definitely some sherry in there. Okay, Jack McGowan. I don't know the first word. Trachea, spice, licorice, fabulous.
The licorice appears quite late
Mm-hmm.
in the aftertaste.
I do have a lot of spiciness in there, but I can't quite put my finger on the spiciness.
Yeah, if I'm taking a sip more, then I have problems figuring out the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a hefty start,
Mm-hmm.
even without this extreme smokiness in it. So it shows what Islay is able to present to you. And this is definitely the result from those pear-shaped pot stills and those European oak type casks.
The taste feels all older than 12 years old, or 12 years. From Oliver B.
It's quite complex, yeah.
I think a little chocolate in the end. Caesar from Brazil. Hello, Caesar. So, can we continue with the next distillery?
Yeah.
So, the next distillery is the Ardbeg distillery, and this here is a great shot from you. I think when you are flying with a helicopter over the island. And the Ardbeg distillery is even older than the Bunnahabhain distillery. It was established in 1815. So just after the turn of the 18th century? No, 19th century. 19th century.
It's always one less.
Always one less, yeah. But the thing is, it's registered 1815, but they were distilling before that, so it's illegal distillery, or not quite illegal, but unregistered distilling. Because you said something about it was illegal to distill in the highlands.
Yes.
But they didn't mention the islands.
Yeah.
So the taxman didn't go to all the small islands, but they didn't make it illegal to distill there anyway. So Ardbeg means the small hill. There are all... Islay is pretty hilly. It has some hills on there. And I walked up one of these hills, and you did as well. This is a nice picture here.
Yeah, so we were there in 2013, and we were flown over from Loch Lomond with the helicopters to Islay. It was awesome, really, that's the right word. And then we got a tour from Mickey Heads, which is the distillery manager you see here beside me, and we walked up to Loch Ugedal, where the distillery gets its water from. And here you see Loch Ugedal, and we had 20 degrees centigrade. It was quite hot. We were sweating. You see my sunglasses going up the hill. And then overnight we had an overnight camping, great camping, glamorous, great camping. And then the temperatures fell down to 5 degrees centigrade, and we had a storm and everything. So it was cold, and the whiskey was good and warming. And the next morning we went down to the distillery again. It was wonderful.
Yeah. I did also a similar tour with Mickey, and we did the Ardbeg adventure. There are some videos on my channel about that, where we went up to the Loch Ugedal, which is one of the two lochs where they get their water from. So they have to walk up there regularly to check on the water source. And we went up there, and it was nice weather when we went up there. But they have these little very
midges,
little midges, and they actually do bite you, and you can do whatever you do. They come and they do annoy pretty much. But I went further on, and we then went to the Kildalton Cross and some ruins, and it was a great time. So the Loch Ugedal is worth a hike. Here we see the heart piece of the Ardbeg distillery. The Ardbeg distillery has a bit of they have less output. They have 1 million liters per year, and they do this with 2 wash stills. With two wash stills and 2 spirit stills.
Do they have 4? Really?
Maybe I've written it down wrong, but I'm not sure. I thought they had 1. No, I think they have 1 and 1. They have 1 and 1.
Yeah.
I think I wanted to write they have 2 stills. And the wash still, this one is right, is 18,000 liters, and the spirit still is 17,000 liters.
What you can see, you have this narrowing, the narrow between the pot still and the neck, and this will bring a more stable vapor column on top of the still, and there the alcohols separate better than these pear-shaped stills, and therefore the alcohol is much clearer, and the taste is not that intense. And Ardbeg brings its distinct taste through the heavy peatiness in its whiskey.
Yeah, and plus they actually have the condensers outside because the distilling building is not that big, and they are condensed outside, so in the winter it's cooler, you don't have to use that much energy. And yeah, so we go on further. This is the warehouse of Ardbeg. When you go in, it's a beautiful site where you have all the Ardbeg written on it, and they have a few warehouses down there. And the interesting thing is they didn't paint one of their warehouses. And when you look at this warehouse, when you look at the floor, you see it's what do you call it?
Natural.
Natural.
It's stamped floor, stamped clay.
Stomped clay,
Yeah.
compressed clay. So you have a very earthy tone, and it's very damp, and that's what the Scottish people say makes their whiskey so good. They don't have big temperature differences like they do have in, let's say, Kentucky. They have colder winter and hotter summer, and here you have a very stable climate.
This is as well through the small distance to the sea, and the water is never frozen there. So it's North Atlantic, will not freeze. So the temperature is minimum for 0 to 40 degrees centigrade. So we will never go much into freezing. So and in summer you quite rarely have high temperatures as we had, just a few days in the year. So most of the time the temperature difference is say 10 to 15 degrees centigrade, so that's not much, and you do not lose that much vapor to the sea or to the Angels.
Yeah, our last picture here is when you go to the Ardbeg distillery, you do have a very nice cafe. So if you're ever on the island, then you have to go down to the Ardbeg distillery at least to have lunch, and if you do have enough time, do the tour. The tour is also really, really great. So yeah, the Ardbeg 10, right?
You switch over to the big one.
Whoop.
Yeah. So I already have the smell in the nose
yeah.
just from here.
Smoky, very smoky.
Very smoky. So it takes quite a time until you smell something else than smokiness.
So what do you have? What do you have in your glass? I know it's a bit strange for us because we're always, I think, 7 seconds ahead of you. So we always have to wait a bit for your comments to run in.
And what's quite interesting, last time we had 400, I think.
No, we were at 120.
120, and
but I think
today
this time
we are around 60.
Yeah, but I think we messed a bit up with the
start.
With the start, I think the summertime played a joke on us, and I think you got the wrong time on your what you call notifications, because we changed the summertime and I didn't check it after the summertime change, and yeah, maybe. Yeah.
And it's probably not that popular to taste whiskey at noon.
Yeah, the thing is, for
on
us,
the West Coast, yeah. So we are quite in the evening. So
it's 8 o'clock evening, and for you, it's like, I don't know, noon. Here says someone, I'm at work, can't drink right now.
We're sorry about that.
Sorry. Maybe we have that in the what do you call it? The nerve to do one at, I don't know, for us at 12 o'clock evening. I don't know. Maybe one time we will do that. That
yeah.
would be done, I don't know, 4 hours later for you. Are you finished with work in 4 hours then?
Or you raise early.
We raise early. We do it at like 3 in the morning. Oh, it's 9:30 in Israel. Is that 9:30? That they're further ahead of us. So that's 9:30 evening, PM. Oh, here someone has smoke and green apples.
Yeah, Ardbeg has a very fruity note lying below this smokiness, and you're able to find this fruitiness and a little sweetness when you have emptied your glass, and do not wash it up, but leave it just with the last drop in it. And in the morning, when everything, the smokiness is gone, evaporated, then you're able to taste the sweetness and the fruitiness in the morning.
You have a lot of what do you call it? A lot of smoke in there with a balancing tip of sweetness, and that's what I like about Ardbeg.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, there's someone from West Coast. West Coast. Another guy. I don't want to imagine what time it is in Australia.
It's 11 on the West Coast. 11 a.m. Yeah.
11 a.m. on the West Coast.
In Seattle.
I think the guys from Singapore are the poorest. They have 3 a.m. in the morning.
Not the poorest, just home from disco.
Okay, yeah, they can watch later then. Also has 46% ABV. And
Ardbeg has the honor to start this 46% and unchill filtering and uncoloring in 1999 when they started with the new brand. And before everything was 40%, so you really feel the 46%.
It's for me, it's a bit fresher this time. Usually, I think Ardbeg is spicy, but the Bunnahabhain was very spicy as well. But they have a cloud of smoke that's going around, and it's for me, it's some kind of medicinal smoke.
But the spiciness, what you feel here is, well, you do not have the European oaks, you do not have the sherry cask, you have first fill and second fill and probably third fill American white oak barrels. So you do not get this intense spiciness. All what you get is American white oak.
Oh, someone here, James Hathaway, took your advice on leaving the empty glass overnight. A drum. The sweetness really came through from a Lafroig. I never had sweetness in the Lafroig, except for the older ones. Like a Select didn't have any.
I think it's really smooth in your mouth. It's not impacting. It's sweet and swallowing. In the aftertaste, there is some spiciness showing through, but not that intense. And the smokiness starts to cover your mouth.
It's a lot of smoke though.
It's a lot of smoke, yeah.
No.
So the next one will have quite a problem going over the smoke. So happily we have some presentation before.
And have some water in between then.
Yeah. And there are two reasons why, increase the size please. There are two reasons why we have to drink water in between. The first is to neutralize your tasting buds, but never eat bread or cheese or butter in between, because the residue of this food stays between your teeth, and the enzymes are acting on that and cutting it into sugar, and then afterwards everything becomes sweeter. So there's no good idea to mix food in between, just have water. And if you drink a lot of water, then you also are getting better rid of the negative congestions compounds of the alcohol. So there's some weird things which you do not like to have for a long time in your body. So just give a lot of water, and alcohol also dehydrates you. So always drink a lot of water to your whiskey.
And that's how you find out the cheap tasting when they usually when a cheap tasting of wine, when they serve you a lot of bread, and then you eat the bread and the enzyme split it becomes sugar and it becomes sweet, and then you're like, oh, this wine is really, really sweet.
And then you have butters, probably with a little salt, which is intensifying, and the butter with the oil, with the grease in it, that is carrying the taste further on. So this is not the best idea. So afterwards you take your case with the 6 bottles of wine at home, and then at home,
It's just normal wine.
just a normal one.
Yeah. So anyway, we're here with the whiskey tasting, and we're going back up in the heart of Islay, and this is the Bowmore distillery. Bowmore is even older than the Ardbeg distillery. It was established in 1779, and it was a typical farming distillery. The farmers sold their grain, and sometimes they could sell everything, sometimes they couldn't, and they wanted to somehow preserve it. And how is it better to preserve than just to make whiskey out of it? You can store it in a barrel, and it becomes even better and more expensive over the years if you don't count the evaporation.
Yeah, so therefore George Washington, he was a farmer as well in Mount Vernon, and he started a distillery which is rebuilt. I was there in 2007. I think they rebuilt it in 2005 something, and there he as well changed his wheat and maize, corn into alcohol, into whiskey. And knowing that, he was the one to introduce an alcohol tax.
Yeah.
So shame on him.
Yeah, and right after that came the first internal American war with the Whiskey Rebellion.
Yeah.
There's an article about that on Whisky.com. So, Bowmore Distillery. I had a great interview with one of the, I think it was master distiller or former master distiller. I think maybe he's still in office, maybe he's not. And he started there as a young lad, turning the malt, and worked himself up as one of the more advanced people of the Bowmore distillery. And he told me about why Bowmore is called Bowmore, and it's called the Great Reef. And there's the Bowmore distillery is near the water to be supplied with all the resources from the mainland. And the steamships came in, and at high tide sometimes they could dock at the pier, unload and go back out, but usually they loaded everything into small boats and just rowed over to the island. And if you're at the visitor center there, in I think one of the tasting rooms or bars or something like that, you see a picture of one of these long boats, and it's just one or two guys in there and a really big horse. So they rowed everything from these steamers back onto the island to be supplied for the distillery.
Yeah, what you can see here is the Bowmore distillery, and close by, not on this picture, is the public pool of the city of Bowmore, and with the waste heat of the stills, which comes from the coolers, from the condensers, they are heating the public pool. And there are some weeks in the year when Bowmore is repairing everything, they are shutting down for that time, and in that time the pool is closed as well.
Yeah, I went in there, I was like, no, we're down for maintenance. So, where was I? Yeah, the production is about 1 million, no, what, that was the wrong thing, I've written it down. It's about 2 million liters of alcohol per year. And how they do this is with 2 pairs of stills. You have in the back, you have the wash still with a little watch glass. In the front you have the spirit stills, and they are quite fat.
Well, they are fat in the bottom, but the neck is quite slim, so the wash stills will work everything over quite fast, and the spirit stills will distill better. And you see the line arm.
This here is the line arm
going up, so everything which condenses in the line arm will flow back into the pot still again, and it takes quite a time until everything has heated up, so that the fumes or the vapors are going over.
Yeah, here you have the line arm, which is a bit more horizontal.
For speed.
And some distilleries have the line arm which is going down, so everything that condenses in the line arm flows into the condenser if you have the line arm falling, but this time it's rising, so it's flowing back into the pot. You have the sizes are 20,000 for the wash pot still,
yeah.
wash still, and 11,500 for the spirit still. And the interesting thing about the distillery of Bowmore is you have a malting floor, and about 10 to 15% of the malt is still done the old-fashioned way, where you first you steep it, and then you spread it out here on the malting floor, and then you have to very, very, very regularly turn it and ventilate the room very intensely and very good to don't get any molds, so you have a good quality of your malt. And when you then take the malt and put it on the drying floors, you usually dry them with peat at Bowmore, and then you get the peatiness inside the malt, and that ends up inside the bottle.
But Bowmore does not use that many peat for the drying as Ardbeg does. So the Ardbeg is said to have around 50 ppm of smoke in it, and Bowmore around 35. This is a lot more as you have on the mainland for the island distilleries, but it's one of the lesser peated whiskies on Islay.
And I think they have a special way of, and this here is one of the special ways of peating it, because they chop down the peat so they don't have to use as much peat. Here you see a very special warehouse of the Isle of Islay, and this is the vault number 1. I haven't actually been in there, so maybe you should take that part.
Yeah. Hi, you can see the sample, the glass in front. So we had a tasting out of the cask, one of those casks, really wonderful. And this is the warehouse called the vault number 1. And you can see the wall on the left-hand side. This looks quite weird because it's wet. This warehouse is below sea level, normal sea level. So when there is low tide, it is dry, and when it's high tide, it becomes wet. And there's water dropping from the walls, and this brings a quite humid atmosphere in those warehouses. Really, really damp, but quite cool and damp. So it's quite unfriendly in there. Well, you read on nearly every card box that these particular whiskey comes out of vault number 1, but vault number 1 is not that big. So, well,
maybe there's a portion of malt 1
whiskey in it. Yeah,
so,
and then you're right.
Yeah, the malt number 1 is very interesting because it's officially below sea level, and this it's actually really below the sea when the tide comes in, and when the tide goes out, it's dry again. So, but when the tide comes in, you're actually standing in a warehouse where you know behind that wall is a lot of water, and that's salt water. So I haven't. If I go in there, I'll lick the walls to see if they're salty. So
yeah, that's the last one.
That's the last one.
Okay. Bowmore. I remember my first Bowmore Darkest I had, and that was in half that amount, please. This was in 1997, and I was in Asia and on vacations, and the water's not that good in those times, and we have some whiskey with us, and there the first Bowmore Darkest came out without an age statement on it, and it was said, well, approximately around 14 years of age, but they didn't say exactly what it was. It was a little bit darker than this one, and well, I remember that well because it was the time when Lady Di died. So it was in August 1997, I think, and everybody of us, I think, remembers when Lady Di died and knows where he or she was. So this is my remembrance of this whiskey. And darkest means they do not look particular on age, but on the darkness of the maturity of the casks, but they weakened that up a little bit and said, well, it's more expensive, so we have to. Again, to recapitulate the price, this one is slightly above 40 euros, dollars, pounds. This is significantly above 40, mid 40s. This one is above 50, and this one is close to 50. So we are in quite a stable range of about 40 to 50. Sorry. So they are not that expensive, but they are still, or they are already not that cheap. So there are a lot of more entry whiskies from those distilleries which are cheaper, but not from Ardbeg. I think that's the cheapest one from Ardbeg.
Mm-hmm. So,
wonderful.
This is a very sherry
Massive,
one, but I don't
yeah.
want to spoil you so much. So, what do you have in your glass? What do you smell? Oh, yeah. I got a very clear smell here. I can give you that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There is some light smokiness on top of it, definitely, but
It
it's
is.
not that strong that is immediately above everything and you're not able to smell through. So this one is, I would say, more nivelated, more balanced between all those different tastes.
Mm-hmm. It was matured in ex-bourbon casks and then finished for 3 years in Oloroso sherry casks.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a huge discussion going on. Well, not a huge discussion. It's a small discussion, but it's coming regularly. Are sherry casks always sweet? And nope, they're not. If you have, let's say, a Fino sherry cask, that's definitely not sweet. It's dry. If you have a PX cask, it's definitely sweet and it's not dry. And then you have the Oloroso sherry cask, which is officially dry, but it has a lot of fruitiness. And then you smell and you taste the fruitiness, and it's fruity, but it's somehow not that sweet. And when you combine it with the ex-bourbon, where the bourbon is very sweet, then you have a sweet flavor in it, and you think, oh yeah, that's a sweet sherry, but it's just a fruity sherry with a sweet bourbon.
Yeah. I looked it up, and those maturation in sherry cask is extremely long, so it's 3 years, and most often, or in the beginning, those Bowmore Darkest were all complete sherry.
Oh,
from the start, first fill. But in the meantime, Bowmore had quite a success and sold a lot of whiskey, so that the supplies are quite low, and therefore I think they had to in mix those ex-bourbon casks.
okay. Here we got someone. Robert Hill. There's something magical about that signature Bowmore smoke. Almost floral and summery instead of smoky. Yeah, there's a lot of discussion going on in Germany as well, and they collectively, I don't know, agreed on the smell to be violet. They have a distinct violet character.
This is a very
Bowmore.
no.
He's on the other side.
Yeah.
He didn't agree with that.
This was, I think, you have this.
I say that it's violet.
You have these mirror neurons in your head, and whenever somebody on the other side says, "I'm tasting this and that," then your mirror neurons fire, and give you the idea. Well, that's in that, because this is from our Stone Age heritage. Because if anybody in the group smelled some bitterness of some poisonous food, then everybody said, "Yeah, it's in," and they didn't eat it.
Yeah.
And here somebody, I think it was a group, a fan or a whiskey group, a club coming from London, and they were in the meaning that they did not get enough whiskey from Bowmore during the tasting. And then they started to tell about this weird taste in Bowmore, and this stuck to the people. And it was called, I'm sorry about that, French War perfume. So this was how it's called, a mouth murder, something like this. So it wasn't fair at all. And what I'm smelling here is resins, dark, dried, a lot of sherry mixing with the smoke, and then some cask influence in the back. So from the smell, this is the most intense we had so far, if you neglect the extensive smoke from the Ardbeg.
Okay, we have James Meyer with 15 darkest is fabulous. James Meyer again, red plums, black pepper, hint of leather, and that wonderful smoke. Not sweet smoke like the Bunna, not bonfire smoke like the Ardbeg, but not like a charcoal barbecue. You do have, I don't have a little hint of smoke in the glass, but you do have a very subtle smoke in there. And a lot of flavors. It's a great mixture.
Yeah. What he said starts to appear if you're tasting it. So I just had it, and then all these darker, more complex, older tastes appear on the tongue. The aftertaste spreads on the tongue, covers your mouth, and carries on. Officially, some cedarwood, caramel syrup. Yeah, probably. And always this wonderful smell.
Oh, and a lot of these dried fruits, this black fruits, this it's 15 years old, quite nice.
Every time we open those bottles, those small flies going through.
And it only happens in the winter because right out that door there are a few plants and the flies multiply in that plants.
Drostophilia. They multiply in a few days.
They must multiply in a few days. I think they multiply in a few hours. So, okay, let's continue with our journey, and I always forget to maximize it. Okay, so here we have a distillery that is very, very different to all the other distilleries on the Isle of Islay, and that's the Kilchoman distillery. Not only is it actually on the land and not near the sea, so they only get supplied by truck, but nowadays all the distilleries are supplied by trucks. So the Kilchoman distillery is a fairly new distillery. It's not very old, but it's from the past century. It's from 1999. And it is for over 124 years, or I think on
25 on the bottle.
On the bottle, as they say, 25. 125 years there hasn't been a distillery erected on the Isle of Islay, but the Kilchoman did the start, and now they are planning a distillery, I think, at Ardbeg, which is just behind Bowmore, the town of Bowmore. And I went there, and the road is not suitable for anything to be transported there. They didn't start the building yet, so I think they are still in the planning phase if they will do it.
If they get it financed.
If they get it financed, if they get the red tape done. They wanted to rebuild the Port Charlotte as well, and there are a lot of plans for doing stuff on Islay, because Islay is a big brand for good whiskey, and I have to say there are really good whiskies on Islay. So
you can see the newity of the distillery from those metal shed halls, because all the other old distilleries, they are made by the stones found in the surroundings, and this is new modern industrial work.
They now have an output of about 125,000 liters. I think my numbers are from 2015, so 2016, 2017, maybe they already went up. Okay. But they wanted to be an independent distillery. They wanted to have Islay barley, where they only grow the barley on Islay, and Scottish barley, where this
they
barley...
advertise with 100% Islay.
Yeah, they advertise with 100% Islay, and they do have their own maltings. They wanted to do 100% maltings, but then they realized, we're doing such a great stuff, and the demand is so high, so they had to expand, and they had to get a few of the, about 50% from from the, what do you call it, the Port Ellen maltings. And now they expanded, they have more malting floors, and they have, I think, bigger kiln or a second kiln, I don't know. They had to do something with the kiln as well, I think.
And they had bad luck. So quite after the start, I think in 2005, they had welding work being done in the still house, and then they had fire on the roof, and they had to rebuild the roof. So they were luckily down for, I think, 5 months or 4 months, and then they were rebuilt and running again. And the last fire before that was in 1960 something in Talisker.
Yeah, but it's always welding. And when I was there, they were welding. They're always welding. And what they also do, I think they will do a few more washbacks, and I'm not sure if the mash tun is big enough, but I think the mash tun is holding out. So this here is their kiln. This is where they fire up the peat, and the peat goes out in the chimney, and up in the chimney there is the malt spread out to dry under the peat to get that peaty flavor. Here we see the still room. Blue one is the spirit still, and the red one in the back is the wash still, and they are really, really small. They have a wash still with 3,000 liters capacity, and they have a spirit still with 2,000 liters capacity. And what we see here is not a constricting piece like before we saw at the Ardbeg distillery, but this here is a reflux bowl where you do have more contact area with the copper, and you have a bit more of a tumbling stream there. So the vapor
more cooling because the surface is bigger,
and the tumbling means that the fumes can't go straight up, so they separate better. They stay longer in the gaseous phase, and they can the bad ones can condense down, and the good ones will rise. And in the back there, you can actually see the mash tun, so you really get a grasp of how small the distillery still is.
And this is 3,000 and 2,000 liters. That is even smaller than the formerly smallest distillery in Scotland, Ardbeg, which has a little bit more of capacity, I think. Yeah.
I actually couldn't visit the inside of their warehouses. I got to go very close to a cask which was just at the emptying stage. But this here are two warehouses that they just built. They're pretty new, and in the front you see a lot of barrels being stored there. They started off with a lot of bourbon barrels, and we actually did what do you call it, the lens for the camera, and we zoomed in and we realized they're all Buffalo Trace barrels, and they actually really got them all from Buffalo Trace. And these here down here are American Standard barrels from the big distillery of Buffalo Trace. Back, I think they are sherry casks, and here you have port pipes which are really, really tall, and I think they carry about 600 liters. Sherry casks are around about 500. It depends on the sherry. Some sherries have 600, I don't know, but it really depends on the sherry.
And in front you have a wonderful plastic storage. This is typically for moving around some, or for carrying it before you fill it over. If you have supplies and you do not have ready casks, you store it in for a few days, and then you're going on filling it. So this one is the Kilchoman called Sanaig. I had a Kilchoman called 100% Islay, and it wasn't that good because it was a pure ex-bourbon cask and quite young. So I said Kilchoman, probably some potential, but not for me. And then I had Machir Bay, which is the bay there in the neighborhood at the sea, and this was a wonderful piece of dram because it carried also whiskies from sherry casks, and this is Sanaig, it's called, and it's matured as well in ex-bourbon cask and ex-sherry cask. So you have a lot of different aromas in, and they do not color the whiskey. Here I have a white one. So you can see it picked up quite a lot of color, so there might be also quite some taste in it. I'm not quite sure if this whiskey is available broadly in the world, because the distillery is still so small and they're still building up their distribution network.
Yeah, the viewers are now rising up a little. And here someone says, Drag, you said 2000. I'm 56 minutes late. Yeah, it's actually 8 now. We started at 2000. The thing is, when I started the stream, when I planned the stream, it was winter time, and then we changed summertime, daylight saving time. Some people call it daylight saving times. We call it summer and winter time. That actually messed it up. So I just changed it back to 8 o'clock. So I'm really sorry about that. I don't know if you all have summer and winter time or daylight saving time or something like that.
They're not exactly in Europe and North America. They change at different weekends.
Yeah, they change it differently. It's summer and winter time.
So and there are states,
really don't like it.
And there are states like Russia.
They don't have it.
They don't have it. They said we stop it. It's complete nonsense.
I'm really sorry if you got mixed up with the time of the stream. So it won't happen again for the daylight saving time of winter and summertime.
Never again? No, next year.
next year, same time, or when we change back to winter time. So sorry about that. So let's have we'll be having the Kilchoman Sanaig.
I don't know how they pronounce it. It will be. It's a small river mouth north of the Kilchoman distillery, moving into the sea, and this shows that Kilchoman is the most western distillery of the United Kingdom.
Oh, it's the most western distillery, yeah. It's
I'm not quite sure. Of Great Britain.
Of Great Britain.
Northern Ireland, I think Bushmills is might be
a more further out, yeah.
A lot of smoke, definitely more than Bowmore, and less of sherry casks.
Okay, James Meyer bought the bottle for this tasting.
Oh.
And Cap F75 said he didn't get it. It's not for sale there. It's a mixture of ex-bourbon and Oloroso sherry casks. And from the distillery I got to know that they have, in storage, they have about 80% bourbon casks and 20% Oloroso sherry casks.
This is always the problem with newly built distilleries. They are short on cash, and casks, the European sherry casks, are that expensive. It's incredible. You might get an American standard barrel used for around, say, 35, 40, maximum 50 pounds. And for a sherry cask, you pay 10 times as much. And you only get 2 to 3 times whiskey in it. So it's relatively more expensive.
So I do get a bit of smoking in there.
Yeah, definitely, but not that stinky.
Not as Ardbeg style, but more of a in the Bunnahabhain Bowmore region.
So in former times, the whiskey had been quite young, quite 3 years and a day, and today we're going a little bit up with the ages. So the bourbon cask might be 3 to 4 years old. 4 to 5 years old, and the ex-sherry cask, they are younger. They're just over 3 years, I think, because they were just able to afford the expensive sherry casks just when the cash moves in from the wonderful sales they have.
It's not chill filtered, natural color, and has no age statement.
46% ABV.
46% ABV.
It has definitely a bigger impact on my tongue. Definitely. Quite hefty. And in the aftertaste, I feel some metallic dryness covering the front of my mouth. So my tongue sticks at the roof of my mouth. So this might be a special dryness. This might be a youngness.
I had a lot of fruitiness, sweetness going on, bit of youth in there, but when you swallow it, you have a nice dry,
yeah.
a dry smoke. But it combines well with the other flavors, like a bit of a sweetness, a little bit of caramel.
But I think it's not that complex.
Yeah, the smoke. This is one of the strange ones where the smoke is rising in intensity. I had that with a few other Islay whiskies. Oh, James Meyer again. Sweet, mineral, metallic notes.
The metallic I have as well, yeah.
Yeah.
But the methyl I do not have. This is typically these cooling notes. Huh?
Jess Butty. Horst, good question that you might not answer. Which one of these you prefer? I think we'll do this in the end. We do this in the end.
Definitely. I have those. I have those 4 through. This is the second time. And, well, I still have my favorite, but I have, well, the second one is catching up a lot.
Yeah, I thought I would have a favorite, but mine changed a bit this time.
Yes, as well. Yeah. So,
I agree, it must be young. 5 years comes to my taste.
Yeah. So, we're through. And, well, the first time I had those 4, my preferred whiskey was the Bowmore, of course, because it carries that much sherry cask influence. The second was quite difficult. I'm not a friend of those very, very intense smokiness. So the Ardbeg was a little bit too strong for me in terms of smokiness, but the smoothness, the sweetness, the lightness of the spirit was wonderful in Ardbeg. And the Bunnahabhain was just opposite. It was wonderful, balanced in taste, but has this very, very intense cask influence. So I'm not quite sure. And the least one had been the Kilchoman Sanaig, because it was so young and unripe and uneven. But this time, all the others rose a lot. So the advantage the Bowmore had was caught up by the others, because this one has only 43% ABV, and the intensity moving into your mouth, into your tasting buds, is not there with the Bowmore. It has, from my point of view, just a little bit the nose ahead, and just followed by those two. And the Sanaig is still on the last place. But if you have to give stars, as we do in our whiskey database, then this one would have today 5 stars, 4.5, 4.5, and 4, 3.5 to 4. This is my rating.
So for me, it was the best one. I think it was a close race. It was a very close race. So I would say there were 2 winners for me, Ardbeg and Bowmore. But the others were quite good as well. If you have a favorite, then please write it in the chat, and we will have a look what the chat thinks about the whiskey and how good the whiskey was.
And if you're very interested in, please go to our whiskey database and give your ratings there, so that this will add up in all those ratings we have there, several hundreds for each bottle, I think. Not for the Kilchoman. This is too young, too fresh on the market. Yeah, I think we're through now.
I think we do a few questions, because I think we messed up with the time a little. So some of you might just tuned in right now. So I had one who did a few questions. This is not a question. It was not a question round, so I didn't go out with the question. But one was about something with the vacuum stuff. He wanted here Horst exclamation marks from Try Finger Rules. Using a vacuum saver instead of a regular cork could be a good idea? Question mark. I would like to know your point of view on that.
No, because what are you doing if you evacuate the air above the whiskey? Then the pressure reduces a lot on top of this. And what will evaporate first? The alcohol. So this is what happens. You have a low pressure distillation going on in this bottle, and this is no good idea. Better is to have these inert gas where you can fill it up, and this is heavier than the normal air will stay in the bottle, and then you put the stopper on. But I would add that only for long time storage. So for 6 to 12 months, very few of those bottles will react because they have quite an age. But this one might react if the bottle is quite empty, say less than a half, and then you put it on the shelf for half a year, then you might find some, oxidization going on into the whiskey. So no, I would take those inert gas, but that's expensive. So on the other hand, you can take this parafilm. I think I have a video online.
Yeah, you have a video of parafilm.
The parafilm, seal it with the parafilm, then you have the oxygen in the bottle, and this will react one time, and they have no chance to exchange the used up air against fresh one. So the parafilm will conserve it much better and cheaper.
Okay, so we have one. We have here Kato. He says, "Cheers from California. Sorry, we started 1 hour earlier. It's because of daylight saving time." You guys started 1 hour. You guys started an hour ago, I guess. Bummer. I think you meant bummer. Yeah. So what else do we have? Have you ever tried to make your own whiskey? I saw someone did this with a Manson jar and a piece of charred wood placed inside a clear spirit. I think I can take this one.
Yeah.
I have a little, let's go down here. I have a little project in front of me. Hopefully I get it.
Oh, but just take it out. Yeah.
Just take it out. I have a little project in front of me. This here is a little copper still, and if you have it that small, it's actually legal in Germany. So
below less than 0.5 liters.
I still have a bit of a read in front of me how to handle a small still.
And the other side, there's always a problem if you have very small casks for those small amounts, then the whiskey will mature really fast. And down there is a big one, a big cask. And there we will have some experiments going on this year. Yeah.
Hopefully, because I didn't get an appointment yet. So, so, yeah. Do you watch other whiskey reviews?
Rarely.
We
have
I do.
Very few times.
Very few times. I just have the thing is, if you watch a whiskey review, you could be doing a whiskey review.
Yeah.
That's the problem for me. Like, you can either watch a whiskey review. I still have to do a few. I'm really behind on my schedule. So I do watch them, and I do like to see the others. I especially like the Whiskey Brazil, but he got some cool stuff going on, but I can't stand a word. He's saying he's all Portuguese, and you're like, okay, this guy is doing something cool, but I don't know what he's doing.
I think you need a babble fish.
Yeah. Yeah, I do watch Ralphie as well a bit. Okay, so
as you can see, he has a persiflage about Ralphie 1 year ago for the 1st of April. Mm-hmm. And if you look carefully at your watch,
tomorrow is April.
April 1st Fool is coming up very soon, and tomorrow we have a very special tasting here on our cask.
I can still remember it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you very much for watching. Unfortunately, we can't sell you these bottles because we will do more tastings like this in the future. We will have a little presentation. It's gonna be a bit more beginner style than most of you would probably prefer, but most of our customers are a bit more beginners, and this is for them to introduce them. I don't know if we will do a distinct distillery next time, or if we will do another region. This time the region was Islay. We did Islay now, but that doesn't mean we can't do Islay again, because Here we have a Bush Latte, we have a Lagavulin, then we could merge Octomore. That there is enough to go around for another Islay tasting. So I think we said about a quarter of a year. I'm away in May on a whiskey tour, so watch out for that. And yeah, you got something?
The next time we will tell about this whiskey tasting in our newsletter. So if you haven't subscribed to the newsletter yet, please do so on Whisky.com so that you're aware that there are live whiskey tastings going on. And probably we change a little bit the time so that it's more comfortable. So we have just a big amount of viewers from the US, but we all as well have viewers from Asia. We have viewers from Central Europe. So we are quite in a mess when to taste.
Yeah, it's really a mess when to taste. We do have some from Europe. So just write down in the chat when you want to have the. But that's not fair because write down in the comments below when you watch this video offline when you want to have it, because obviously you couldn't watch it. So yeah. So
that's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I need to find the shut off button. But shutting it off is not as hard as getting it on.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and
Bye-bye.
see you next time.